And welcome into the Week 10 wrap-up show. I'm your host, Ian Power, joined as always by Matt Vitale and sometimes by Frankie Santiago. We're here to bring you our weekly 3 and out as well as this week's top waiver targets. It's actually a better waiver week than it usually is, too, at least this time of year. A little bit of news before we dive into that, though. Tyler Lockett got a slight knee sprain and is not practicing, which is an issue because the Seahawks do play on Thursday Night Football this week. So if Lockett can't go tomorrow, I kind of doubt he's going to play this week, but he's someone we're going to have to monitor throughout the week. Chris Carson also not practicing today with a foot. So, sort of same story there, except Carson's already missed time, so there's reason to suspect that he'll miss more. Drew Brees with ribs and punctured lung. Timeline unknown, but he is going to miss time.
Ooh, I did not know about the punctured lung.
Yeah, he punctured his right lung. If there's a worse lung than the other one, I'm not a lungologist, but if there is a worse lung to puncture, he may have punctured it. But yeah, right lung punctured. Sean Payton he's throwing some smoke screens up. He's not sure who the team's going to go with. Are they going to go with an actual quarterback or Taysom Hill, who sometimes runs the football out of the quarterback position? Who knows?
I mean, for all seriousness, it's probably going to be not Taysom Hill. So
it's probably going to be Jameis Winston, yeah.
It's probably going to be Jameis. So the interesting thing I've seen out there, people have been just saying, hey, go check what Taysom Hill is in your league, because for most of our leagues, he's a quarterback, but there are leagues where he is a tight end, and
yep.
I would love to own him as a tight end right now, where he is running, catching the ball.
I believe it's on Yahoo that he's a tight end.
Yeah. Regardless, just go check your league host, see what he is, put in it. If he's a tight end, he is a huge ad this week because of as we saw this week with tight ends, how bad they were.
Yeah.
Go get him. He could be a valuable asset going forward while Breeze is out.
Well, I don't think the Breeze being out really impacts Taysom Hill's value that much. They use him plenty when Breeze is in. Yeah. But we'll get to that later. I know Frankie's talking about the situation in New Orleans. Teddy Bridgewater needs day-to-day with a sprained MCL. He might not miss any time. That's sort of the word on the street right now. Is he could play this weekend. So, that's obviously good for Carolina's weapons if he plays. Bridgewater has been a nice little surprise this season, as far as providing fantasy value. So, a teammate of his, though, CMC, unlikely to play this week. They're already saying that he's likely to miss Week 11, so if you've been rolling out Mike Davis, keep rolling out Mike Davis.
You hate to see it.
Unless you're a Mike Davis manager.
Which is me.
And then finally, in a move that surprises no one, except for maybe that he has been held on a team this long, Jordan Howard was finally released, which means he can now go to Houston to screw up Duke Johnson's multi-week value.
Yep.
Or he will go to the Patriots, as is tradition.
No, we already have some slow plotting backs. We don't need a second Sony Michel. But you know who could use another one? I hear the Bears and the Texans are both missing their slow plotting back. So, those are two dark horse teams. Honestly, he's someone who I would go ahead and maybe not put a waiver claim in. I don't know if I'd spend any fab on him, but I would definitely pick him up after waivers. Put a $0 claim in, or grab him after waivers have cleared. Because if he goes to a team that's currently missing a running back, he's someone who could provide value pretty easily. We've seen him do it before, and he's at least been efficient on touchdowns this season. So.
Honestly, he might go to the Panthers depending on how much time CMC misses.
They seem pretty happy with Mike Davis.
Do they?
He could go to the 49ers. Jermichael Hasty broke his collarbone this weekend.
Oh, true. That happened too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think that's a more realistic landing spot for him. Head out there, join the rest of the running backs being injured. It's just, that's just...
Then at least he can be a injured scratch instead of a healthy scratch.
Wait, didn't Jerry McKinnon get injured again?
I can't even keep track of that backfield, honestly.
I believe he's actually one of the only healthy.
Yeah, I believe he's currently healthy. But that's most of the major news that I saw. Anything that I glanced over that you guys want to bring up? Okay. Let's dive into it then. Frankie, take us away.
All right, well.
Week 10. 3 and out.
Wrap down.
Ba-da-da-da. We don't have a a sound clip for it, so I just inserting it.
Yeah.
We can use that though. We can just clip that and plug that in every week.
Let's not. MVS. He's kind of maybe a thing. I don't know.
No. He wants to trick you into thinking he's a thing, so you'll play him, then he'll drop everything.
He's the new Deshaun Watson. Or not, sorry, Deshaun Jackson.
He's the new Sammy Watkins.
Yeah. He's joining that elite squad of when I'm on your bench, I'm amazing. Once you finally lose credit, all trust in him, he's gonna go off.
Well, I was always a Lazard fan, and when he went out, I assumed MVS was going to kind of step into that role as the two, going to be able to be supported by Aaron Rodgers, who's playing extremely well this year. I think he should be in the MVP talk, but while he's technically, literally the number 2 on the team in targets, it's not by much. Aaron Jones missing 2 games is only 6 behind him. Tanyan's pretty far behind him with 13, 16 for Williams, which again is due to Aaron Jones missing games. While the other 2 are pretty substantial, being 10 plus, the fact that Aaron Jones is only behind the number 2 receiver on the team by 6, missing 2 games, is kind of wild to me, especially in a pass heavy offense led by a Aaron Rodgers that's doing really well this year. Over the time that Lazard's missed, he's put up 8, 5, 4, 1, 4, 6 as far as targets go. So that rounds out to about, I think it's like 4.5.
8, 6, 7, 5, 3, 0, 9.
45, 32, goose egg in there. 19, 53, and that massive game he had this week for 149, which is kind of the only thing that's buoying him above those other 3 in terms of, he only leads those 3 guys I mentioned in yardage. All of the rest of them have a better catch percentage and more receptions. I think that he's kind of putting up that smoke screen, like you said, with the Deshaun Jackson, where, I feel comfortable putting him as a flex while Lazard's out, but you can't count on him to have a monster game like that every week. He's put up decent flex numbers, but
You can't even count on having an average game every week.
I don't know. I like the ceiling, but I think that the way again, he has a goose egg in there as the number 2 receiver, and that was against Houston, who you can throw on.
I will say, as sort of a death knell for MVS, this might have been his swan song, because Lazard has been practicing since October 28th, and he's likely to be activated this Wednesday when the Packers have to activate him.
Yeah, Lazard could have come back this week, but they kept him out.
Yeah, Lazard's probably it seems like the Packers were just trying to milk that roster depth and give Lazard a little bit extra time to recover. So there's a good chance Lazard plays this weekend, and we don't have to worry about, is MVS a good play anymore.
Yeah, honestly, once Lazard's back, I think all of his value goes away.
Yeah.
The big thing MVS's big draw was that he has the moves, he has the footwork to get open, which draws. If you got a competent quarterback there who knows how to go through his reads, he's gonna see the open guy and can hit him. Problem is, he's got Mike out of his hands.
Yeah, I think that
might be generous.
Yeah, that's honestly my biggest knock on him is
he's out there with 2 sticks of Land O'Lakes trying to catch balls. It's gone.
He just can't hold on to the football. So, once Lazard comes back, he's irrelevant.
Yeah, he's basically just a wide receiver version of Scott Chandler.
Yeah.
He was on the Patriots, just the panhands. Just Lazard is the better receiver. He can come down with the ball better. It's just MVS can get open. If you just merge those 2 guys together, you have another elite receiver.
Fortunately, with Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, you don't need that much separation to get passes. So,
touch on this earlier. Drew Brees down for the count, apparently with a punctured lung as well as a rib contusion.
and at his age, with COVID bouncing around, that's just not good for you.
So he's gonna probably miss, a substantial amount of time, I would imagine.
Yeah, as I said, I'm not a lungologist, but I imagine a punctured lung keeps you out for a bit.
Historically, we've seen Alvin Kamara ceiling come down with Brees out of the commission last year and briefly the year before.
Oh, a punctured lung takes 6 to 8 weeks to fully recover from.
So I hope you weren't relying on Drew Brees for the playoffs. But yeah, again, I believe that the quarterback's going to be Winston, and he likes to throw, so maybe this is fine for receivers. I'm not really super worried about Thomas or Kamara, or maybe even Cook, but I think that this definitely limits them in the capacity of keeping the offense on the field, because we know Winston likes to turn the ball over. On the plus side, they might be playing but from behind in games, or they might lean heavy on Kamara. So, I mean, he's definitely developed into one of the better pass catching backs, so maybe they'll just do a lot of dump offs. I don't really know what to expect here, because, I mean, Winston was obviously balling out last year, went to the Saints as a backup.
I mean, you got to think it's good for fantasy. Winston is not afraid to sling it. He also did, get his shoulder and eyes fixed in the offseason, so ideally he should be able to actually see where he's throwing the ball now, which, as a fellow vision impaired person, being able to actually see things, much easier to do stuff, especially when I'm trying to do stuff at a distance. Like, I can't imagine being an NFL quarterback without even having contacts, and you're just like, yeah, I think there's someone. Oh, nope, that was the other team.
Yeah, until I see what it looks like on the field, I'm pretty much only comfortable starting those three. Maybe Sanders in a good matchup, but that's pretty much where I stand with that.
Yeah, I think this is showing that they made a good move in getting Winston when they did. He's a competent backup, probably one of the best ones out there, and with how he played just down the backside of that game. Against a solid defense, he looked good. His weapons looked okay. I mean, Thomas didn't really show out much, but I think that's just going to take some gelling, as we know receivers and quarterbacks have that kind of thing. Whereas developing a dump off with a running back is not so much there. So for those two, I think those two should be about the same. They honestly they could lose the quality of target, but still gain in the quantity of target because of as you said. James Winston likes to turn it over. It's not that he does it; he likes it. It feels good. So him turning it over could put the defense back on the field and get them behind in certain games where he's gonna have to push it more, push the tempo, push the amount of balls he's putting in the air. I think this basically limits. I think the biggest loser in this one is Latavius Murray, because I think the run game is going to start suffering.
Yeah,
and we're going to see passing volume go up, which we know Kamara is very comfortable in being. Both this week and week one, he had he had under 20 yards on the ground, but yet still put up a top 10 fantasy day.
I will say, the report that I saw earlier was saying that there's timeline unknown for Breeze. It does seem like RotoWire is reporting that Breeze is going to be out 2 to 3 weeks.
That seems quick.
Yeah, I guess it potentially. I guess it depends on how severe the rib injury is, and how severe the punctured lung is. I don't know if there's grades of punctured lungs, but definitely something to watch too. Because if Winston's the quarterback down the stretch for fantasy teams, I mean, he gets Atlanta, Denver, Philadelphia, KC, and then Minnesota. I mean,
Atlanta twice is a blessing.
Yeah, Winston could be in a lot of shootouts down the stretch, and that's sort of where he thrives. So he could legitimately be a league winner at quarterback if Breeze is going to, miss some time getting to throw to, weapons like Kamara and Thomas and Cook against those putrid defenses.
All right, and the last thing of note, this was kind of my watch and see game for Alex Smith.
Sure.
They unfortunately lost to the Giants, so that's not great. But I mean, he threw for 69%, 390 yards, 0 touchdowns, but 0 picks, so safe game. Gibson, 13 for 45 and 2 touchdowns. McKissick actually led the game in targets, although he wasn't able to do a lot with them. Didn't really have the yardage, didn't have the scores.
He wasn't being really targeted down the field. It was a lot of dump offs to McKissick.
Yeah. Terry, no scores, but 7 for 95. I'll take the 16.5 fantasy points there. The next 5 of 6 wide receivers off the board were actually Washington receivers, which I found, partially due to game script, but Smith threw the ball 55 times. He's clearly not afraid to throw it out there. aside from Pittsburgh in Week 13, he's going against some pretty easy defenses. He's got Cincy, Dallas. Then in the playoffs, he has San Fran, Seattle, Carolina.
Yep.
So those are all games I could see being shootouts. So I think that, I mean, as far as running that offense, I mean, I think he's in a pretty good position. Maybe he doesn't have the ceiling of these other quarterbacks like Russ or Kyler, obviously, but I think if you need a streamer, especially against Dallas and Cincy and Seattle, if you're in a position where you don't have one of those guys who has a good schedule, I mean, honestly, everybody on this team is a play against those defenses because they just don't play defense.
Fair.
Gibson's looked better lately. Terry is obviously the talent to have on that team, and I think he's one of the most underrated receivers in the league. He didn't get a score this week, so maybe you can even buy him low now. But again, I think he's one of the safer quarterbacks. Not like the guy that you're going to talk about soon, but I mean, I would feel much comfortable having him rather than, I don't know. There are more volatile streamers like.
He's a good streamer if you're just searching for points.
Yeah.
But, like, he's not a good streamer otherwise, even against those bad defenses. Like, I watched some of this game, too, and the biggest thing I saw with Alex Smith is that he wasn't moving it down the field. He had very shallow depth of targets, which hurts everyone on the team, and this is kind of what we expect with Alex Smith, because this has always been what he's done, with the exception of that 1 year, was it what? I forget exactly how long. It was like 1 or 2 years with Andy Reid and KC. But outside of that, he's always been a short depth of target guy, which does bring down people's ceilings, and it honestly probably cost them this game against Detroit, because he's not taking those shots down the field. He's not trying to get Terry open in space, 15, 20 yards down. He's dumping it off to McKissick, and it's a stat padding type of system. It works well for making your end line look good, but the actual product on the field isn't.
Yeah, I think the best way to put it is, if you need points, he's probably not going to get you those points. If you want points, if you want that typical, teens to 20s, mid-20s game, you're probably going to get.
His ceiling's probably like 20.
Yeah, he's a floor play that will need a sneaky touchdown where someone just breaks it and runs it in for him, basically.
Yeah.
I do think it is, from what I was seeing in the highlights, it looks like he just is still kind of working his way back into football and kind of getting used to, game speed, being in the pocket. He's coming off a horrific injury that could have taken his leg or his life. And you got to feel that he might be just getting a little gun shy when he feels the pocket collapsing, not wanting to be standing there holding the ball for another guy to just ruin his leg.
Sure.
I think this is going to take some time, but I do like him as a floor play. If you've got nothing, if you're a league where guys are holding 2, maybe even 3 quarterbacks, and you need a spot start just to buoy your week. You're not trying to you have other ceiling plays on your team. He could be a nice floor play to bring you in 13 to 15 points, not turn the ball over, maybe get a touchdown.
Sure,
that's what he is.
Yeah.
And he is very low on my wanting to start. He is if nothing else, a break in case of emergency kind of guy.
Yeah, I think he's a safe start, especially with the schedule. Maybe not against Pittsburgh, but again, looking at everybody else, if I need 15 points, I'm comfortable starting him if there's no one else.
I'm still on the opposite side of the fence from you guys, just because in this season with how quarterbacks have been playing, 15 points is a week killer. If you get 15 when quarterbacks are averaging 23, that's you're automatically at a deficit in that week. It's just there's so many better options out there. You have to target ceiling with quarterbacks. You can't pick a guy that literally doesn't have a ceiling. Like, if he's the only one out there, if your quarterback's on a bye and he's literally it, sure. Otherwise, I'm leaving him on the bench. I think there's guys that have a better ceiling, and I'd rather target that ceiling and chase the win rather than lose by 8 points and get to pat myself on the back for not losing big.
Russ got me 8 points.
Speaking of a guy that was a ceiling play for people this week and showed them his floor, Drew Lock ain't it. The Broncos are still supposedly committed to Lock after the loss to Las Vegas, but Coach Fangio is, quote, very concerned about him all the same. He threw 4 picks on Sunday, And he paired that with a 48.9 completion percentage, which, if you're keeping score at home, is bad. He also had a QBR of 37.3. So he had a really, really bad day. He somehow couldn't move the ball at all against a not good defense. He made the Raiders look like the Steelers. Like, I don't know how. I guess I do know how they can trust this guy, because their backups behind him are Brett Rippon and Jeff Driscoll, who aren't really any better. So it's like, you might as well just keep running Locke out there and see if you can figure it out. So that way you at least just know exactly what you have in him come draft time, so you can pick a new one. But like, he's down to 55% completion on the season, 7 TDs to 10 picks, a QBR of 66.5. He, especially if he can't move the ball against Las Vegas, it's like, who is he going to be able to move the ball against? You got to downgrade the whole offense while he's back there, at least until he shows that he can figure it out.
I mean, that's almost half of his picks in one game.
Yeah,
that's not great.
No.
Yeah, I'm really bummed about this one because he was a guy I really liked coming out of the draft. Kind of a more of a project player. That's why he went a little bit later in drafts, where he needed time on the bench to develop. I think this might have been a failing by the GM staff and the Don out there in Denver, just not putting a competent, an elder quarterback back with him to really kind of teach the ropes. I mean, he had Joe Flacco for basically a year and a half. And if Joe is good, but we know Joe's nothing special.
There's plenty of quarterbacks that have come up in the league without having a elder statesman to teach them the ropes. Like, if you can't, I'm sorry, if you are able to make the NFL and you can't figure it out on your own, like, you are one of the top 1% at your profession in the world. At some point, you got to take the training wheels off and be like, you know what, I'm either going to focus up and learn and succeed at this job, or I'm going to fail. This isn't a failing on the coaching staff and the GM. They gave him everything he should have needed to succeed. They improved his O-line. They bought a better running back for him. They drafted the best wide receiver in the draft and paired him with Cortland Sutton. Like, he has weapons all over the field. Admittedly, Cortland Sutton's been injured, but other wide receivers have stepped up. He has weapons all over the field, and he just cannot get it done.
No offense, great.
Yeah, he's missing reads. He's missing throws entirely. He's putting the ball in bad spots where it's just uncatchable for receivers. He looks like he is in over his head, and he is just not an NFL quarterback.
Like I said, I still disagree on that because, yes, there are guys that come out of the draft ready to go, and that's why they go top 10 picks. This is a guy who went in the middle of the second. They traded up to get him. Like, he was touted as a project player. He needed that extra work. So that's why when I say it, like, you want to put a guy who's been around, who can show him the ropes. But when that guy's Flacco, who gets hurt, basically pushes Locke out on the field. Locke showed that he could do some stuff, but I think this year, he talked about his weapons. Fans been injured all this year. There's been no Cortland Sutton. The running games look terrible. So it's like, I do put the blame on him, but I do think they're in the right point where they're concerned, but they're still committed, because you can't pull them out of this game because it's like everything else is not working as well. Like, the defense couldn't stop. Their defense couldn't stop the Vegas Raiders either, so it's like.
I mean, it's hard to stop anything or make anything work when your quarterback isn't even completing half his passes.
I don't know how many of those picks went for pick sixes, if any, but
yeah, I'm just saying it's like he is a problem for the team right now, but I think the team still has room to develop with him. I don't think he's like, this game is not making me think he's a lost cause. I think he's still needs time to develop, and I think they should proceed as they are, cautious, and they leave him out there to see what he can do.
Okay, agree to disagree. My next point on another young guy that is showing out much better. Deontay so far this season has either been great or hurt.
It's really just amazing how predictable he is at this point.
It's like, did he get injured this game, or yes or no? It's like a flow chart. Yes or no, did he get injured? Yes. Was it at the end of the game? If also yes, then he had a great game. And if he didn't get injured, he had a great game. If he did get injured, he didn't have a great game. It's like, that's the only thing that's affecting his regression so far. It's like, when he doesn't have a good game, it's because he's hurt, not because he's just dropping passes or just, gets blanketed by a cornerback, or Big Ben just can't find him. It's like, it almost seems improbable, but it's just like, he needs his body to sideline him to stop him from being amazing, it seems like. I mean, so far this season, when healthy, he's been averaging 12 targets a game. I average this out over the games that he's played either most or all of. So I'm not counting games where he left early. In games where he's played most or all of the game, he has 12 targets a game, 7 catches a game, 84.4 yards. He's hauled in 4 TDs over that span. Like, he has looked so good for the Steelers. He looks like what Juju is supposed to look like. And Juju has been getting better over the last couple of weeks. It seems like he's finding his way back into the offense. Honestly, the addition of Deontay and Claypool to distract from Juju, I feel, is actually probably helping Juju because, Claypool's regularly getting in the mix too. It's just so hard to cover 3 very talented receivers like the Steelers have, especially when you have a smart guy like Ben throwing him the ball, whereas he's a fair distributor. He doesn't zero in on one guy. He just finds the open guy and throws it. So I really like the way the Steelers' offense is looking in total, but Deontay is a big gold star for me this weekend. On the season as a whole, I hope he can stay healthy over the rest of the season so that we can see if this is really what he is or if he's somehow been a mirage so far this season and a half. But also more so because if he remains healthy down the stretch, that helps us properly evaluate where we should be ranking him next season, because I'm dreading having to go into next season being like, well, Deontay played 9 games.
Well,
but he was really good in the 9 games, so where do we put him?
Well, where do you have him right now?
I haven't done my next season rankings at all. You mean for this season?
Just spitball. Where do you think?
I'd probably say 5th or 6th round, like where you took Will Fuller this year. But because that's an impossible judgment to make this far out.
Yeah, honestly, with the pace he's putting up, I'd be very surprised if you see him there. He looks like he's going to be a upper 3rd round pick next year.
Well, sure, but if he keeps taking every other game off because of injury, then you downgrade him. That's why I say I hope he can stay healthy over the rest of the year, because him staying healthy over the back half of the season could be the difference between him being a 3rd round pick and a 5th round pick.
Yeah. Also, claps for Juju, by the way. He's figuring it out, kind of.
He still had some yikes moments in this game. A couple passes where he should have caught it and he didn't. But
he can't catch them all.
He's looking better. Yeah.
Just thought I would throw the honorable mention in there.
Yeah. Like I said, I think the Steelers are not very quietly, because they're undefeated. I think the Steelers are very quickly looking like one of the best teams in the NFL. They're currently my Super Bowl pick from the AFC. And then a team that I wish was my Super Bowl pick from the AFC, but they haven't quite got there yet for me. What is going on in New England? I mean, 2 weeks ago, they were 2-5. They were headed for the 1st overall pick. People were talking about if they just drop this game to the Jets, they're right there. And then they beat the Jets, as you're supposed to, and then they beat the Ravens in prime time?
To be fair, they almost lost the Jets.
Right, but they didn't. And then they beat the Ravens somehow. And they beat the Ravens despite missing Stephon Gilmore to a knee injury and Jawan Bentley to a groin. 2 of their most impactful defensive players this year, with all the guys that are out with COVID. What is going on with this team? They literally just are not making sense. They're getting blown out in games where it's they should be able to compete here, and then they just die on the field. Admittedly, that was Cam's first game back from COVID, but
yeah.
And then they're shellacking the Ravens. 23-17 is not a shellacking, I guess, but no mistakes, or no big mistakes on offense, no turnovers. Damian Harris just crushed it against a very tough run defense. 22 carries for 121 yards.
I think that's the most impressive.
Cam only threw it 17 times, but he didn't turn the ball over. He threw for a touchdown. I want to see this team become more competent at passing to balance out the rushing attack, because if people know that the Patriots are going to run it with Cam or Damian, it's going to become easy to stop it. But I like where things are going. This team seems like it's getting back on the right track, and hopefully we can get Gilmore back soon to bolster that defense.
Yeah, I think the most impressive thing for me is Damian Harris putting up 121 on the Ravens.
This is so not against the Ravens, but this is kind of what we expected. New England fans were excited when Damian Harris got drafted last year, because he was supposed to be this talented kid. We snaked him in the 3rd round. He has 2 working knees, which is more than you can say for Sony Michel. He was supposed to be the successor to Sony Michel, because Michel was failing and his body was dying and whatnot.
Well, he was my late-round sleeper for guys to look at the end of your drafts.
Yeah, he's paying off big this year. He's showing people why he should be in the NFL.
Yeah, honestly, looking at this game and just listening to local reporters talking about this game, the big thing that just came back is I was kind of surprised. I thought this was more of a Brady issue, but it seemed like Bill kind of was also keeping this too. He wasn't utilizing his young weapons like Damian Harris, Chase Winovich, like all these defensive guys who like in the beginning of the season when they were popping and people were like, oh look at the Patriots are still there, they can still play.
Yeah.
That's what Chase Winovich was the biggest one. I was like, I love this kid. He looks like mini Thor out there.
Yeah, Chase Winovich is good.
Yeah, with the long blonde hair. Like his snap count started decreasing. They started losing. All of a sudden, they started using him again. Wow, he starts playing well. Like their rookies are playing well. Their second-year players are well. Like Damian Harris. Like all these guys that are just young and ready to go and are hungry for it are playing. And Bill's getting away from using his slow, plodding guys who've just been there for years and just kind of think they deserve the spot. Like that's what I think it's turning into.
Yeah, I'm happy to see it turn around. I like to see some competitive football, and as a New England fan, it makes me happy that I at least get to watch some competitive football from New England. That it's not just going to be a blowout of a season. I'm a little sad we're not going to get Trevor Lawrence, but potatoes, tomatoes.
Yeah.
So, Battelle, what do you got?
I got a few things. So this is a team I have been talking about specifically defensively that I said should be scary, and look at that, they're looking scary. The Rams D, like Jalen Ramsey showed you why. I mean, when all the antics coming out of the Brinks truck and everything, wearing the money on the back of his jersey and all that stuff, like he came in. DK Metcalf has been one of the scariest receivers this season, and he just took him out of the game completely. The old school Revis Island just said, "You're the best receiver. You're going night night. You're gonna sit on the bench for a game, and I'm gonna make you beat me with the rest of the weapons." And it showed that it worked. I mean, Russell Wilson had one of his worst games this season. Two interceptions, no touchdowns, 248 through the air. Like even Russ was putting it on himself about this one. Like Tyler Lockett did get banged up, and they're still missing Chris Carson, but like. Man, this defense is legit, and it's not getting the respect. Like every week we're looking at it, we're like, oh, Washington can play some D. Their line's pretty scary. The Ravens are the Ravens, Steelers are the Steelers, but yet the Rams come up every week, and you're like, yeah, like it's just it's not a great matchup, but it's just the Rams. Like the Rams are legit, and they can tear apart a team when they catch them right, when they know. Like Pete Carroll's a great coach, defensive minded, and he's got the players this season. Like. They've been adding to this team slowly, either before the season with Jamal Adams and in the trade deadline. Like, we need to start taking this defense seriously. And I also, like I said, I was talking about this before with Russ. Like, Russ should start cooling off, especially when he's not matchup proof. Like, we know that the style of game they want to play is 240, one touchdown, lots of ground and pound. And I think they're going to have to start getting back to that if they want to win. And why I think they were smart to hold Chris Carson out for 1 week and see if they can get through this game. Clearly they couldn't. But, like, him coming back this Thursday should be a big boon to them, especially if they're going to be out, sans Lockett. I don't think that they'll be, DK should return back to...
I think it's going to be a great game.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game. Like, I mean, we're getting another Russell-Kyler matchup. Like, I'm excited to watch it. I think if you were a little shell-shocked by any of your Seattle plays from this game, don't shy away from it. Play into this game. It's going to be a huge total, and there's going to be points galore.
Yeah, I like the total a little bit less if Lockett can't go, but DK should still have a fine game. I think it limits Russ's ceiling, but
all right, moving to another the Eagles. As Frankie said, accidentally, it was the Washington played Giants. It was actually the Eagles that played the Giants. The vaunted Giants that beat them this week, as everyone predicted. That how everyone in the industry was like, oh, Chris Carson, lock. Miles Sanders, lock. At least just start everyone against them because it's the Giants. Nope. The Giants couldn't do anything on offense. Like, you saw highlight reels of them trying to get 10 yards. Like, you had Miles Sanders jumping over people just to get them going somewhere, but they couldn't get anything done. Like, and then on top of that, like what production you did get, it went all to people you didn't want. Like Boston Scott rips off a long one for a touchdown. Corey Clement punches in a 5-yarder. Like, it's like they said out there, like, not only was their team not playing well, they're like, well, if we're not going to win, fantasy owners aren't going to win. We're going to take away their touchdowns from their quarterback, from any of their wide receivers, or our main running back. So just double birds to you. Like, I'm glad Doug Peterson's pissed. I'm like, this should have been an embarrassing loss as it was, and yay, the NFCs continue to be this just race to see if we can set a record for worst team to get in the playoffs ever.
Hey, Giants are on a 2-game winning streak. They are only a half a game out of first place now.
Peterson did not seem happy.
No, neither did Philly fans with some of the videos I saw of them.
Oh, Philly fans are never happy.
Yeah.
True. I mean, true. They're never happy, but, they're a little extra mad after this game, and rightfully so.
Somebody pissed in their cheesesteak. Yeah. What's your final take?
Final take on, continuing the positivity train here.
Sure.
Is the Panthers. We already talked a little bit about their injury woes and how Mike Davis is once again going to be starting at least this week. And sadly, it sounds like CMC might be sitting for longer. Like, this might not just be another 1 week and then he's back. He honestly could be out through their bye, which if you're not, if you haven't not checking right now, that's week 13.
Yeah.
So that's fantasy playoffs when you're getting this guy back. And if you've been holding him the whole season, like you don't want to sell low on him, you want to try and hold this elite back to try and win later, maybe you could have done it, but I'm going to put the chips on, it didn't work out too well for you. Now you're looking at 2 games left. He's definitely not playing against Detroit. He's not going to play against Minnesota, most likely. So then he's not playing in week 13 because none of them are. And then you get Denver, Green Bay, Washington, which are solid matchups, but you might not be playing in your playoffs because of this. Like, if I'm a CMC owner, I am going, groveling to one of the top 2 teams and seeing what I can get off their teams to see if I can get myself in the playoffs by grabbing, maybe a wide receiver, a low, like high-end wide receiver 2 and a running back 2 or something like that. Get a shiny piece and sell him because we don't know how bad this injury is. He might come back and look like a shell of himself, or he could pull another comeback monster game and then he's out again. Like, he's clearly fragile. There's something up with him, and it could just be one of those seasons where he just needs to get right in the offseason. Like, I am worried about this team a lot now, and Teddy's out, so it's like all of the weapons here are not looking great, and it's not like we're not even getting Mike Davis we were getting previously. Like, Mike Davis was looking pretty rough in that game, and to the tune of 7 carries for 32 yards, 4 receptions for 12. So,
I mean, it was a bad matchup.
It was bad, but I think it's only going to get worse. Like, you get another week out of Mike Davis, which is great if you picked him up. You definitely got your fab money paid back, but I am not happy to play anything on this team. Like, DJ Moore is a hard sit for me. Like, I think Robbie Anderson might be the sole play, and he's a flex play at best for me, or wide receiver 3, just because you don't know what you're going to get out of those backups.
Yeah, this is kind of reminiscent of what I talked about with Drew Brees. It's like, except to more of a, I guess, worse extent. It's Teddy's out, but that's not what I'm worried about. CMC's still out. So with both of them being out now what are we going to get with this offense? I mean,
Well,
Robbie.
keep in mind, Teddy's not confirmed out yet.
I think that
he is only day to day.
I think that it's. I mean, even the couple plays he sat out a couple of weeks ago against Atlanta, they didn't look good. Whoever, I forget what the backup's name is, to be honest. But they didn't look like they could move the ball down the field.
Sure.
So if they have to rely on that on top of not having CMC, I'm a lot more worried about what this offense actually is.
Not to mention, this was also an injury to the very fragile knees of Teddy Bridgewater. So, luckily, the reports came back that it wasn't any structural damage, so he's not going to miss any significant time. But, hitting the weak spot on the quarterback like that, I am worried. Like, if I am an owner of this team, maybe if Teddy can, I'd hold on to him. Hopefully, Teddy plays this week, and then I sell. Like, that's what I'm trying to do right now: is sell.
The backup is Philip Walker.
PJ Walker, yes.
Yeah.
PJ Walker sounds like an old school NBA player, like just like a.
He looks like an older gentleman. Yeah. I don't know how old he actually is. I was looking at his picture. He looks elderly for a football player.
He is 25.
Ah, well, that's unfortunate. All right, let's jump over to the waiver section of this show where we bring you guys the best and the brightest waiver options for your teams. This week, we have at least one player at every position. Starting at QB, we have Jameis Winston. That's it.
For our not French speaking audience, that is Jameis Winston.
Yes, Jameis Winston at QB. If you need a QB, he is an instant ad for me. I'm not worried about Taysom Hill at all. Jameis has a crazy high ceiling because he's Jameis and he's throwing to Mike Thomas. Go grab him.
Wait a second. I had to go double check him just to make sure. You sure you don't want to put an ad in there for Philip Walker, the XFL star?
Yes.
He shines so bright. He's probably going to be the MVP of that league till it shut down.
Yes.
Fine.
At running back, we have Salvan Ahmed, Kalen Ballage, Nyheim Hines, Wayne Gallman, and Damian Harris. The big pickup there for me is Damian Harris if he's available. 44.4% of leagues. But he's the one that I would be shotgunning budget at if he's somehow just kicking around in your league. I don't know what leagues he's kicking around in, but it's over half. So after Damian Harris, for me personally, I would go Ahmed, Hines, Gallman, Ballage. Are you guys in that same order there?
Yeah, I'm in that same boat. I would say Ballage last, if anything, because Eckler will be coming back soon-ish. We don't have an exact timetable, but once he comes back, I think Ballage's value is just nothing.
Between it being Kalen Ballage and Eckler coming back probably week 11 or 12.
Yeah, but
Kalen Ballage's value could evaporate almost immediately.
Yeah, and Harris should have already been added in every league, and if anything, I would have stashed him because this is he's showing out and being everything that he should have been at the start of the year.
Yeah, he's playing very well. What about those other guys in the middle? Vital, are you doing any different order?
I do like that Hines is kind of showing out, but Jonathan Taylor's still there, so he scares me as far as that. I think the best case scenario for Hines, realistically, is that they move into a split, and he's been the passing down back, and if they get into some tough sledding where they need to come from behind, I trust him to play in a role that Philip Rivers is comfortable with and using a passing down back. So I think he has some legit value going forward. It is still limited. Like I said, if Taylor comes back to form and can remember football again, Hines could drop off a cliff just like Ballage. But no, I think that's probably the best in that order. Is probably the best way we got it right now.
Fair enough. Wide receiver, we only have two options this week: Jacoby Myers and Keelan Cole, 22% and 13%. I would pick them up in that order. Jacoby Myers looks like he's the number one on New England. He's not going to pop every week like he did 2 weeks ago, but he still had a respectable week this week. I think he put up 59 yards, so not killing you there. Tight end, we have Logan Thomas at 19.6%, which I think makes this his fourth or fifth time being on this list this season.
He's had a very average year. He's
Yes.
pretty much getting you 8 to 12 points a game. I like it.
Which, sadly, for tight end is actually really good.
Yeah, you keep trying to stream around it, being like, maybe I'll find some points with this guy. It's like, nope, you should start Logan Thomas every week because he's probably not going to kill you half the time.
Yeah, just take your bland slop and like it.
And then at DST for week 11, we are still recommending you start the Chargers this week. If you, by any chance, missed grabbing them, I don't really know. There's not a lot of other guys that I'm really jonesing to start this week. I know we gave some other actually I take that back. Especially with how bad the Broncos looked, Dolphins versus Broncos might be my top start this week over Chargers Jets.
I would not mind that. The Dolphins have looked really good lately.
Dolphins Broncos could be a spicy one because the Broncos look like they don't know how to football, and also they're very fond of just handing it to the other team. Like, I wish that would at least save time. If the Broncos just handed the ball to the opposing defense and let them run it down the field to score, then at least they just get the ball right back and they can go back to trying to score. Like, can they... Any other ones aside from Dolphins or Chargers that you guys would target this week? Maybe Washington versus Bengals or...
that's not a bad one.
Lions versus Panthers if Teddy Bridgewater misses...
I still don't particularly trust that. I would say Chargers. I would say in that order: Chargers, Dolphins, Washington,
and then Lions.
I still wouldn't trust the Lions defense.
If you need them as a start, that's why they're at the back of the list. If they're getting, and that's if Teddy's out. If Teddy's out, so no CMC, no Teddy, and the Lions get to catch that. Get to catch PJ. I already forget his last name.
PJ Walker.
PJ Walker.
I was thinking
XFL star.
I was thinking PJ Tucker for some reason.
He plays basketball.
Yeah, he
I
does.
think it actually is a basketball player.
Regardless.
Yeah, so that's the order I would do that. I wouldn't use the Lions unless you absolutely have to. And then obviously, if you're really, 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 really desperate, the Vikings do get the Cowboys this week. So, play at your own risk with that one. It's like the opposite of a movable force means unstoppable object. It's offense that can't do anything right meets defense that can't do anything right. Well, only one can continue. Someone has to lose there.
If you guys like our our content, like, comment, subscribe up here, down below our names. Ask us any questions on social media if you have them. Particularly Twitter. That's probably the best way to contact any of us. Also, feel free to comment and let us know, what you want to see on the show. If you have any questions.
Yeah. Comments, concerns, critique, post it in the comments below. We're always happy to hear about things you guys like about the show or ways you guys think we can improve. See you guys later this week.